Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Mike, joined by two very special guests returning. Antoine, welcome back.
Yo.
Post Avatar coverage. Chris, the Objective Geek. First time here on the channel. Welcome, man. It's been a long time in the making getting this Avatar video together. Tell the people who you are and your background.
Yeah, okay. I am Chris Ford, aka the Objective Geek of YouTube, Twitter. You can find me there. I've been a big, huge fan of Avatar since it first released. Day one fan. Man, today someone on Twitter was like, I saw someone on Twitter being like, "Man, Avatar fans. There's a lot of Avatar fans in their 20s." And I'm like, "What the
I
heck?
know.
I'm
What are you talking about? No, we're in
35."
the 30s. Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I was like,
If
"Wow,
anything, it's
are
the
you
early
guys?"
30s. Like, 20s might be
Yeah,
the Netflix people who came in 2020 or
yeah.
something. Like,
Yeah, like what the heck? No, day one fan. I got a YouTube channel called the Avatar Last Podcast / the Objective Geek. I have several dozens of just Avatar videos, specific videos, which I don't make Avatar videos anymore. I still do the podcast, so there's
which
weekly
you will be
episodes.
now.
Oh,
with
it's.
the,
I
with the
think I'm
movie
out the
dropping next
game.
year and everything.
I think I'm a little bit out the game. Like there, I was consistently making videos, and then I got a new job. Then I had a third child, and then
Oh,
making
that'll do it.
videos just
Yeah,
went
that'll do
like,
it. Yep.
yeah. But I can still make the podcast. I can still commit 2 hours every 2 weeks to making the podcast with my friend Sean. So those, we got new episodes coming out every Sunday. Always interesting discussions with Sean. But yeah, anyway, that's me. Love Avatar.
Awesome. Podcast is great. I listen to you guys every time you upload. It's a fun time.
Thank you.
Definitely both channels are going to be linked in the description. Antoine, last time we talked, this Netflix show didn't come out yet. I think you're
Yeah, I
about
don't
to
know
see the
if I had
premiere.
already watched the first. I hadn't even seen the premiere yet, right?
Yeah, the premiere was like that same day I think we recorded.
Ah, okay, I got it.
So spoilers, this is the most watched show on Netflix in like years. I'm sure you've seen it if you're watching this video. But spoilers, by the way, give us your thoughts initially before we get into the good stuff.
Well, I likened it to a microwave burrito. In
Oh,
that,
boy.
it's like the first bite is like, dang, this is pretty good. Then you get to the middle, and it's like, oh man, there's like a frozen middle like here, and it's like, kind of unevenly cooked. But then you get to the end, and you're like, okay, this is actually pretty solid. But I don't know if this was like worth it, you know what I mean, kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
I do think it's a net positive experience, the adaptation, because you'll go from one scene, and it's like the most brilliant thing, you'll have like the 41st division. You're like, oh my fucking god, that's great. And then you're
That's
like, oh
amazing.
wait, what did they do with Ko? Like, why did they do that to Ko? So it's like a definitely like it can flip like on a dime, like pretty easily.
The whiplash I get from this show it's insane. I don't think I've ever experienced anything like it,
Pretty
honestly.
uncanny.
But yeah, Chris, give us your thoughts.
This is gonna be such a
More.
fun conversation because I don't know. I'm just riding like a little high right now. So first time watching it, me and my friend Sean came over and we just binged the whole thing in one sitting, which honestly
Yeah.
isn't the greatest way to watch a show. I don't think.
Yeah,
And
to binge
so
it too.
afterward, yeah, yeah. I think I think a lot of us are in agreement. Like weekly episodes would have been,
It would have been so much better, I think, if it was that way.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so after my first watch, I was like, you know what? I really liked it. I got to wrap my mind around some things, but I really liked it. And then I watched the second time with my daughter, just like an episode a day or so. And then while I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I'm loving watching this. And by the end of it, I was like, you know what? I think I love this show. And I think and that's a very subjective light love.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's a really great adaptation in the sense that it is true to the world of Avatar, yet it is offering something new and slightly different. I, for one, didn't need a one for one translation. Like you're
Yeah.
turning a TV show into a TV show. If it's a one for one, I'm like, what am I? Like the only reason why I would want this live action if it's complete one for one, if for some reason I thought animation was an inferior medium, which I don't. I love animation, and so I'm glad that they didn't do it one for one. They changed some things. Some things, you know what? Some things didn't didn't work. But there's so much good in here. Like they have so many. There's probably like three changes. I'm like, those are improvements over the original. There's a couple other ones. I'm just like, whatever your preference is between the two. And then there are a few that I'm like, that was weird. Um, why they do that? And there's one that I hate. There's one absolute one that I hate. But all in all, I think it's great for the universe of Avatar to have something a slightly different way to just ingest this really great story, and I'm really looking forward to them finishing the story. And I'm be pissed off if they're not allowed to finish the whole thing.
Right. Because I think that
Yeah.
actually will help. Actually, in the same way that even with book one of the original animated show, if people talk about it, you realize that people say, "Oh yeah, book one isn't like the best of the bunches." Like people will say like book two or book three is their favorite, right?
Yeah.
And that could be
Yes.
the same case for this, right? Like you could say like, "Oh man, if they do get to complete all of it, you'll look back at this and be like, oh man, that actually was like a pretty solid foundation for what they were trying to do.
Mhm.
Which, there's a lot of things that they have set up that we don't know how it's going to be paid off with how they're like making these changes and things like that. So it's really going to rely on book two and three and how those payoffs are going to happen on whether or not, some of those setups in book one were good or not.
Yeah, and that's a perfect point, and that kind of leads us into the topic of this video. But before we get there, Chris, I gotta know, what was the one thing that you hated? Because you were by far the most
Okay.
positive from everybody on this
I know.
podcast, so I gotta know.
So maybe there's two things.
Okay.
I hated that. Now, when I told you about this, I hated that UA was a spirit fox.
Oh, that was
Like it
very
was just
strange. I didn't
it
mind it
was
as much because I was like, okay, like whatever, but it was also weird. Like,
well. And I
Yeah.
think it might be one of those things. So I did a video once about like here's how Avatar Netflix could be better. And one of those I listed like 10 ways it could be better. And one of those I was like, they could introduce more Native American mythology or beliefs. Sorry, not mythology, what their beliefs into the show because a lot of the characters have Native American and indigenous cultures in them, and they're represented by those people. Like people like
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, there's just Asian cultures." Like, no, there's and anyway,
no, there's a
and
lot
like,
of not just that, but also Mesoamerican too that people don't realize with the Sun Warriors. Like people kind of forget about the Sun Warriors. I'm like,
yes,
those are straight up Mesoamericans. Like,
yep, exactly, yeah, and like, and pardon me if I'm not getting it all correct, but there's like some aspects in my very limited research of Native American beliefs, some aspects of like dream walking or something
Mhm.
along those lines. And so UA was like, oh yeah, well I can go to the spirit world in my dreams. So I'm like, oh maybe they were trying to connect that to something along those lines. And they were cool, great, but like the Avatar is special because they are like the perfect balance of a spirit and a human in one body. And then UA being like, oh well, I'm kind of part spirit, but mostly human. Like you just muddled the waters that didn't need to be muddled.
Well, though I think it
The
does sort of work because of how she was born. I mean, she was going to die, and she basically does have like half spirit in her a little bit. And also, I always liked the idea that the North was more spiritually inclined, which we get more of, in Korra when we look
yeah.
at
Mhm.
Unalaq. And then seeing how the South was getting more like industrialized and things like that. But that's more like expanded stuff. But I do
Mhm.
like that there was a continuation of that. That the North was like more spiritual. You have UA doing her UA things. So that I was okay with. I just didn't like that she was a fox. Like make her like a penguin or something. I don't know. I don't know. Something
Yeah.
related to water or cold.
Or
Like
a fish or something.
a fish. Maybe yeah. Maybe he like Sokka sees a fish, which would be better because then you can allude it to her,
Right.
being a koi, later on in the
Um,
series. The fox was very. I mean, I know in Japanese mythology they have foxes like the Inari and stuff like that, but it wasn't
oh
even like
yeah,
an orange fox. So it was like,
yeah.
what are we doing here?
The
Uh
other thing I hated while we wait for him is Jet being the one to to tell Katara um, how to teach her how to like use the love or the memory she has for her mother. Like I
mhm.
feel like that was kind of out of character. Like in my head, Jet should have been the one to be like use the anger and use that anger to bend, and then Aang would be the one to be like, no, Katara, that's not the way. Like use the love and stuff. But anyway,
Oh, that was the
Yeah.
thing too. I think they split the team Avatar like in the middle in those middle episodes a little too much because then it was like, oh, like even when Katara, which is funny
Mhm.
because I actually when I was watching episode one, I was like, no, why did they take away Katara's line about like we're your family now, Aang, and that she's the one who calms down
mm,
Aang when he's in the Avatar state after seeing Gyatso. I was like, oh, I
Yeah.
get it because they established Gyatso a lot more than they did Katara, and they kind of shifted that line to the last episode and where she was talking to him when he was in Koizilla form
Yeah.
which I was like, oh, this would land like because the performance was really good, and I've heard a lot of people saying like, oh, I didn't really like the kid performance. I felt like the kid performances were like way net positive for me. Like I didn't I thought they were gonna be way worse. Like when
Yeah.
you
I
have
think
good
they
actors.
all did well with what they were given. I just don't think they were
Exactly. I think the
given
writing
great.
was the part that was
Right.
really the issue, not so much the performances. So yeah, that part with guitar at the end, I felt like that performance itself was like super strong, but I was like, but that's it. What I'm bringing to it is my knowledge of like the show and like the world and all that kind of stuff. So I'm already like bringing like, oh, I know who Katara is. Yeah, but in terms of
Right.
me seeing it as its own individual piece, I was like, oh, I don't know if that was really earned, because like you didn't see them like really having like these intimate, back and forth. They had that little bit when they were at the dinner, and I was like, oh, that was like the one little thing. So to have that outpour felt more like oh, you guys know the show already, right? You understand that she's already at this point, but from the standpoint of the live action itself, I felt like it wasn't earned in that moment.
I would have loved in that moment if she like water bent herself up to Koizilla and went into it and hugged Aang. I was like, that would have been like a weird change, but it would have been like it's interesting in that moment. Yue says like the ocean spirit is lost trying to find its love, its partner, and it will
Mm-hmm.
forever keep wandering the world. And the Katara, and it's the same
Katara's the one who
thing with
stabilizes them.
Aang.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And Katara's the one that is his tether to the world.
That also would have mirrored the Southern Air Temple episode of the animated show, where
Yeah.
and even in the season 2, she calms him down when he's in the Avatar state again after they lose Appa. So it's like that could have been
Mm.
cool symmetry there. But yeah, I feel like a lot of this show's issues really stems from what you were saying, Antoine. Like halfway through, they split up Team Avatar, and it's like we never really built
Yeah,
that
it's book one.
chemistry
We're
and that
supposed to like build it up first before we split them.
right. And so if that was like a season 2 thing, it probably would have went a little bit better. But it's like they never really established, outside of my other issues with the shows, like they never established that core by the time we get to the finale. And
Yeah, because even in episode 3, they kind of split them a little bit too. Because you have
yeah,
like Sokka going off with the Mechanist, who is now called Sai. Was his name always that, or is that's completely new to the show, right? Like they create. Okay, I was like say like, he's always been Mechanist, right?
yeah,
And then Katara goes off with Jet, and then Aang is doing his thing with Teo. So it's like already at episode 3, it's like wait. Episode 1 and 2 wasn't enough. Like if they only had like half an episode to like get to know each other in the first one, and in the second episode they was nice, the Kyoshi stuff. It was like you gotta keep building that, like keep doing that.
right.
I'm curious, Antoine and Mike, how many times have you guys watched it?
1.25 times.
Okay.
I'm at 2. I'm pretty
Okay.
about 2.
So I watched twice. So I had the same criticism of it that man, Team Avatar didn't have enough. They didn't have enough time together. And my second time viewing, it wasn't as bad. I still think it's something that could have been improved on, but it just wasn't as bad. But yeah, they split them up twice in the show, which I got. Like I understood that it helped with telling the story, but yeah, needed more Team Avatar.
No, but Avatar, we're gonna just go through things we want to see them do, improve on, add in season 2, book 2, Earth. I guess I'll toss it over to you, Chris. What's one of the things you want to see them tackle in book 2?
All right. I'll start off with my number 5, I guess, and I'll end at my number 1. So this was the one change to the. This will be completely different departure from. It'll be completely departure from book 2, but I want to see more of the influence of the 41st Division. That was a brilliant freaking
Yeah.
change that they made. Like it's so brilliant. That thing even Brian Konechko will be like, they did good that one. They did good on that.
Well, I actually wonder if that might have been his decision, because episode 6, the original script, was written by him.
Oh,
And
really?
episode 1
Okay.
was originally written by Mike. So those are the two that they did before
Ah.
they skedaddled, which is why, in my opinion, episode 1 and 6 are one of the better ones.
It's
Okay.
fascinating to me. Before we get off that point, it's just fascinating that the 2 episodes that I like the best, seeing their names in the credits, I'm just like, that makes
Oh,
sense.
that might be a thing.
Yeah,
That might
okay.
have a
But anyway,
correlation there.
Chris, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so I want more. I want some type of inclusion in the 41st Division because Iroh's like, hey, maybe they got out and stuff, and Zuko's like, I'm tired, cool. But like
Mhm.
Zuko now has this. There's this. He probably has a kinship with them, and Aang just killed them. like, I wonder will Zuko carry, or he might have killed. Maybe they got away, but Zuko might carry around something in him of like the Avatar. Like, sure, Aang to do, but the Avatar's power is this. Maybe there'll be some type of story element there, where he, I don't know, where he have more of a motivation to find Aang, or it's something for Aang to deal with. Like Zook, like they'll come to content. Zook will be like, "You killed my men," and Aang will be like, "That wasn't me. That was the ocean spirit." Because like Aang has this. While I didn't like in episode 1 that they changed it to where he didn't run away, I think that was a mistake because they're taking away some of his flaws. I think they are doing this thing where they're making it to where he's running away from his responsibility, putting it on someone else. Like he tells Gyatso, like, I don't want this power, and then he lets Kyoshi take him over and do it and when you wipe out everybody. And then he wants to Avatar Kuruk, like, hey Kuruk, just take over my body, and then you can have Kuruk's like, I can't do it, I'm not Kyoshi. And then he lets the Ocean Spirit take over. So there might be this constant theme of Aang running away from responsibility, different from before. Um, and so there might be this other thing of like you can't run away from responsibility, and also the whole Spider-Man thing with great power comes great responsibility. So maybe there'll be some type of thing in there for the 41st Division, just that story beat to be in the second season because it was so freaking strong in book
Yeah.
one. Well, not book one, but season one.
Yeah, that is to me is like the best addition that this show has made by far. It just hammers home Zuko's entire arc up to that point. I think that was really well done. I also love Lieutenant G. Like I love his relationship with Zuko and Iroh, and it's just like as much as he tries to help, he still gets under Zuko's skin just enough
Yeah.
to trigger that childish outburst from him. So getting that actor back, I think, would be really cool if they
Yeah,
can
I think they're
find a
definitely gonna
way.
bring them back. Like they're not gonna do that and like have the reaction they saw from it and just like,
Yeah.
no, we're not gonna use them anymore. Like that would be a crazy mistake. Like, but yeah, that guy was great. Even the first time he like has an interaction with Zuko, or maybe the second time he has an interaction with him, when they're at the Wolf Cove, and then he's like, Sokka's like, one-on-one combat, whatever, right? And then he's like,
Yeah.
literally rolls his eyes when like he's like, for the glory, And they didn't have him say honor. They had him like say everything but honor. I don't know why they did that. Like I was like, it's okay to have. I know it's like a meme at this point, but like, come on, have him say it like one time.
Yeah.
But you can see him just rolling his eyes, like, oh, this guy in his glory, he's gonna get us killed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I loved him like the entire time, and then I love that the respect that was given at the end too. Like that was like,
Oh man,
such a good cathartic
our
moment.
prince has returned. Like I
Uh,
teared up the second time watching that.
Yeah,
Like,
I teared up the first time watching that. I was like,
yeah.
that is what it means to be a Fire Lord. Like Ozai, like take notes, like right here.
Oh
This is how you earn
man,
the respect of
yeah.
your men, not by putting fear in them.
Thing is, they showed that little clip in the trailer, and it just went over my head because I was like, man, people are bound to Zuko. Okay, it's just you just bow to royalty. But man,
Yeah, I
such a
thought that was
freaking
like the
strong
first
moment.
episode or something. I didn't realize it was episode 6 when that was happening.
yeah, phenomenal. It. So how would you want them to incorporate? I don't want to stay on one point for too long. Like how would you want them to incorporate it? Because one of my concerns and one of the things I was going to bring up is I want them to cut this book in half because I don't know how you
Oh
tackle
man,
all of this in one season and add the
I
things
was
that we want them to flesh out.
I was looking at the episode list just like a couple hours ago, like trying to figure out what you could take out and stuff. Book two is freaking dense. Book
Yeah.
two is so freaking dense. Book three, I'm not worried about book three because book three really two things happen: the Day of Black Sun and Substance Comet. Like, and then there's kind of filler around there. You can do that in 8 episodes. But book two,
I
I
think
don't.
what they're gonna do. Okay, I'm looking at the episode list right now too, right? Since they already did the Cave of Two Lovers, that's already gone. Like, you know what I mean? That's another thing. I was like,
They did,
why?
yeah. They did
Okay,
the
like
swamp.
yeah, and they basically did the swamp already. So then basically I would think the Avatar State and Return to Omashu might be sandwiched again. Like they might do another Omashu
Mhm.
multi storyline, type
Do we
thing.
go back to Omashu? I mean, I guess we have to
I
because
think you
of
have to.
Azula,
I think
but
they're
like,
the way that
Yeah.
they set up Omashu, they probably will.
doing Cave of Two Lovers was just really strange. I'm like, oh, I guess we're not going back to Omashu, but then
I think
we are.
Avatar Day might get cut because we already had a lot of Kyoshi already.
Avatar Days are getting cut.
I think episode 2 will be tough. I think it might be the Blind Bandit, and they'll expand more on maybe by a dual episode. Maybe it's like a Zuko alone and Blind Bandit kind of a thing. I don't know. It's weird. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yeah.
We
I
gotta
don't know how
have
they're gonna
Zuko
do
do
it.
something. So
Yeah, this is gonna be. And then how are they gonna incorporate the 41st Division in this context? Like it's a more. I would say it's almost more difficult to adapt book 2.
Yeah.
In the fashion that they're doing it.
yeah. So
Like,
yeah, that
yeah, book one seemed. I'm sorry, interrupting. Book one seemed
You're good.
easy compared to book two.
Yeah, now I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what are
That-
they gonna?
I don't know if I actually said this on a stream or on a video before, but like my entire when the show was in development, I'm like, you've got to just cut the books in half. Like season 1 should have just ended with Winter Solstice, right? Like that's how I felt pacing wise. It could have worked because now this one kind of felt a little rushed. Next one's gonna feel insanely rushed. I feel like you cut out the whole Appa gets kidnapped subplot because
Can't.
we barely see Appa anyway.
But that's the thing. You could save money. You
I
could save
guess.
money. By
which is
Appa
what they
being
did.
gone.
Yeah, that's why Appa and Momo were not in a lot of the first book because they're like, money.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, him getting kidnapped will not be nearly as impactful because they are barely there in the first place. So it's like, I don't know if we go to the library because we saw Wang Shi Tong anyway, and like, I don't know.
They would have to readapt it. They would have to give like a specific Appa arc within those first few episodes, something new like to the show, so to
Yeah.
give us that the impact, since we don't have it in the same way as we do from the original show. They would have to add some sort of beat with Appa prior to the kidnapping in the library and desert episodes.
Yeah. So that's my main thing of like, hey, maybe we cut this in half or just go all the way, lean into it, and do a fully original version of the story. We end
I
up in
think
Bossing Say, but
that might happen. Honestly, I think it's just gonna be like basically completely different. Like,
I don't know. I think they're gonna. I think they're. And I hate when artists do that when they kind of concede to the fans. But I think there'll be more
oh, they
one
might
for
stay with it
one.
more. I don't know,
Yeah,
because I
I
actually
think
don't
so.
care for it being 1-to-1. Like, I
I
don't.
personally, I don't either.
I
But
prefer
some
it
Avatar
being
fans,
uneven.
some Avatar fans are
Yeah.
get pissed off about random things missing. And I'm like, this. I don't think
And
this
like
is that
small
important.
stuff sometimes too. Like, oh, what did somebody say? They're like, "There's no penguins. What sledding?" I'm like, that doesn't. Come on. That doesn't matter. That doesn't
yeah.
really matter.
Yeah, I'm like, it doesn't have to be 1-to-1 as long as the spirit's there and the story makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, there were moments here where some story beats were like, that just doesn't make sense in this context. Or like Aang penguin sledding, it's like, you didn't have to do that, but I need to feel the fun and like childlike nature from Aang in a different way. So if you just replace that, I'm cool with it.
Right.
But Antoine, what's the thing you would like to see them tackle in book 2?
I'd like Katara to be a little bit more dynamic. I felt she was a little I felt like, and this is the case for like a lot of the characters
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the first season, particularly even with even Han. Like, they made him just like a general good guy, and I was like, okay, that's cool, but
Yeah.
he had no conflict with like Sokka. He was just like, we're just
Han,
kind of
I think Han was a weird glow up. Like they made Han like the most interesting, not interesting, but the most like good guy ever.
yeah, he was super good guy, and I was like, but like conflict, like that's the whole thing about like stories, right? Like you can make him good at the end, right? You can have like him and Sokka are bros or whatever, but like they got to get to that point. You can't just have him start that way because then it's just like then the plot line's just flatlined. Yeah, same with Katara. I feel like she needs to be a little bit more dynamic. She needs to be a little bit more bossy, like some of the flaws she has, right?
Yeah.
Which they kind of touch on a little bit with her fight with Sokka, but that was more like a brother sister kind of thing. Especially when they bring in Toph, and I think they can alleviate that and make that happen when Toph comes into play. By the way, and this might be like my second point, but I mean we're all going to talk about Toph, obviously.
Yeah.
Toph has to 100% be perfect. Has to 100% be perfect, and that's a really great way for bringing the negative flaws of Katara out when they both meet each other for the first time. How they butt heads. I don't want them to be friends from the get go, like they kind of did with a lot of the characters in this first book. Make them enemies for a little bit there, and then have them earn the friendship. Going forward, I want to see more conflict.
Yeah.
I'm gonna interject a little bit because that's absolutely on my list and everything you said. On my list was conflict between Katara and Toph. Like, and I think it might because they created such a more I wouldn't say softer Katara, 'cause she does have these moments
Yeah, she has her
of
moments.
aggression
Yeah,
and stuff, but it's definitely a lot more like the best girl you ever like the girl next door almost. um,
right.
and so like if you have that, then if you have like the best, most perfect girl, then you have Toph, who is just like completely opposite, is going to create more friction, hopefully open up Katara's flaws and stuff.
Right.
So hopefully, and that can make sense. It won't be like a complete change for Katara to go from this to that. But if you go from this and you add in Toph, then it's understandable that she will be a little bit more angry and abrasive at times because Toph brings that out of people.
It's a lot of pressure on the young actor who's gonna have to play Toph Bayfog. But honestly,
They
I
could do it.
think
Just find like the Chloe Moretz, from like Kick Ass from a few years ago. Find that
yeah.
It's
actress
so
out there somewhere.
it's so hard to find that because
I know
that would be
Chloe
freaking
Moretz is like,
perfect.
yeah, exactly.
Like
Yeah.
Kick-Ass is such an underrated movie. First of
Oh, it
all,
is
I think
absolutely.
it's probably the best. I think it's better than Deadpool because Deadpool kind of came in like took that R-rated funny type of stuff, but
Hmm.
Kick-Ass is so good.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
Chloe Grace Moretz, holy crap, she's amazing in that film.
But
Hmm.
yeah, I think Toph can alleviate a lot of the issues I have with Team Avatar right now of like yeah, Toph injecting that sense of life to it, because I feel like they're all very stoic, like you were saying, Antoine, flat,
Yeah, it's kind of
where like
neutral a little bit.
where it's like, yeah, like Sokka will have a joke once in a while, maybe twice an
Mm.
episode, but it's like the sense of life that I want and the dynamic I want out of this team is just not there, because they're all very one note on the straight and narrow. And it's like Aang being the goofy one and Sokka being headstrong and Katara having to try to rein them in is what makes Team Avatar
Would you
a
say One
dynamic.
Piece does that better for their characters?
One Piece does that perfectly. Like every single character feels like a live action interpretation of their anime or manga counterpart. It's like Luffy in the manga and the anime, he's extremely goofy and silly. I mean, he's a plastic rubber band man, so he's like got these anime isms to him with the way he talks and the way he moves, and like they tone it down enough to where it makes sense that a real person can play Luffy, but Luffy still has that
Mm-hmm.
goofy, fun-loving nature to him. Like, I'm gonna become the king of the pirates, and it's really endearing. And it's like those are the things that I want to see from Team Avatar in the future. And Toph, I feel like, can bring that out of them a bit, because like
Right. I
her,
think Sokka's closest already. Like I think
yeah,
Ian's performance is the closest. He doesn't need as much change.
right,
But yeah, we
Mhm.
definitely need more goofball. Like it's funny too because Aang at the beginning, like when he's talking to Appa, is going like, I just love like goofing around, like being a whatever kid. You know, they don't trust me to feed the baby sky bison. But I didn't really like feel that in a lot of his
right.
performance.
That is
And not
that's
so much
like
because of him.
writing. Yeah, that's like writing 101. Show, don't tell. And they did
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
they
telling.
totally told like in that scene. I was like,
Right.
oh, why
But
are they doing that?
but that's why if they use Toph, like I feel like
Yeah.
Toph being the same age as Aang, they can kind of have that relationship, like that sibling relationship, where you can kind of bring some of that fun out of him. You can have her conflict with Katara, and like you said, Sokka's pretty much, once we got past the sexist Kyoshi warrior stuff, this guy's pretty much Sokka anyway at
Yeah.
this point in the story. So I'm hoping adding Toph to the mix can bring a little bit more out of the other two, and then we're good to go. That's why I said it's a lot of pressure, because that's a lot to
Yeah.
put on a kid.
The thing is, I think the thing that fans I think sometimes don't understand is that they are subconsciously comparing all of Avatar and all of their relationships to just this book one. Because the show, when Toph was introduced in the show, that happened to Team Avatar. Like Team Avatar felt complete when Toph was added to it.
Mm-hmm.
Different characters, dynamics and stuff, things different change. Katara became more of that motherly figure.
Yeah.
Um, like Toph just automatically, if done right, makes Team Avatar
Yeah, I
better.
believe so too. I think once Toph gets into the mix, I think a lot of like those things will go out, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, remember that time we didn't like that dynamic? Like, it doesn't matter because Toph is here." You know?
Right. So Toph, that's a big one.
Yeah, yeah. No, Toph is like they need to spend weeks and months like looking through all the
Holy
choices. Yeah,
crap.
yeah,
That is, yeah. That's a tough cast right
yeah.
there.
It's gonna be a tough one. It's gonna be a tough one. But if you nail it, woo, will you nail it?
I mean, I will say, out of all the issues I have with this series, casting's not one of them. So I'm sure the casting director of the
Mhm.
show can find
Yeah, I would
somebody.
say the thing I want to see more is like more into the writing and the directing in particular, like because
Yeah.
you see these kids in these interviews and they're like, wait a minute, yeah, like Gore is totally
They
Aang.
look
Like
like they look like a great freaking Team Avatar, like in the interviews and stuff. Like man, their chemistry and stuff so good. But also, these scenes were filmed 2 years ago. Like
Yeah.
Gordon Cormier is like a foot taller, literally a foot taller now, and
The
he's
way
just
he
more
shot up
personable.
and his voice dropped, I'm just like, that's not the
Yeah,
same.
it's what
That can't be the same kid.
yeah.
well, then they can say like that's where he learned waterbending. He spent a year at the North because of that he did not waterbend at all in the first book, except for the Koizilla, which that wasn't really all the way Aang.
Yeah, I don't know if that's on anybody's list, but I'm gonna just take it now since you mentioned it.
What the waterbending?
I
Yeah,
need to see Aang bend water, and I need to see him learning Earth. Like I need to
yeah.
see the training is the most important part in some of these
Well, bitter
moments.
work. You have bitter work there, so just use that.
Man, I don't know if we have time for bitter work.
I
That's a
know that's the thing. Like I was
looking
looking at
at
the episode list and I was like, dang, when can they? I mean, I think bitter work has to be like integrated into like another episode. Like it's not gonna be a dedicated thing like it was.
yeah.
Yeah,
Aang will probably have trouble doing it, and
yeah,
then he'll do it in practice or in an actual fight. Like they'll do it that way. They won't do it to where Sokka gets stuck somewhere. Like that's
Oh
just
yeah, with the no, I don't think that's gonna happen either. Jong in there, that would be nice. I don't know if they can again because they're already cutting things out. There's no way to like reinserting stuff because I think that was a big dynamic that was a little bit missed. Because now
Albert Kim did say in an interview that
Oh,
they
yeah.
might bring season 1 plot points into season 2. So
Oh, in the same way that they put yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
okay.
we might get Zhang next season. You're
Yeah.
not crazy with that train of thought.
that's a good point. I can go ahead with my next point. So my one of my points was Iroh in the White Lotus, and because I was thinking to myself, one that
Ooh,
we
yeah,
gotta set up
that.
the White Lotus. Like that was a huge trick. If they don't do the White Lotus, that would be a complete mistake.
Oh, they definitely
I was
are.
trying
They
to think
already
to
hinted with the piece, the pie show piece.
that's true.
Mhm.
I was trying to think to myself, like in the animated series, they didn't talk about how Iroh got introduced to White Lotus, but in an interview, Bright was saying that like, oh yeah, after Lieutenant died, Iroh went off on a journey of self-discovery and stuff, and so in my head, that's when he discovered the White Lotus.
Yeah, that's me too. That's
But
my head canon as well.
but in this show, it looks like Iroh went back home, went to Lieutenant's wake, and just stayed there because he's probably stayed by Zuko's side. And so I was trying to think like, all right, well, where does he get introduced to the White Lotus? Oh, Zhang, Piandao,
Right.
one of those two. They'll just have a meeting like a flashback or something in season 2 of him meeting Zhang and like right before Zhang deserts and Zhang's like there's more to life than whatever like I'm going off to do this
Or even
and
having
then
a nice scene like that because I actually liked a lot of the additional Iroh scenes, like how he had with
Yeah.
Aang and some and that oh my god that Earthbender one, that scene he had with the Earthbender, that was
holy
one of the
crap
highlights. I was
yeah
like, yo,
Yeah.
this feels real. And that guy whoever that actor was, because they cast the hell out of the show.
freaking
I
great
felt him. I was like, yo, you're only in one scene. This is probably the only time you see this, but you are really trying to get promoted or whatever. I
yeah
don't know what you're trying to do. Like,
Everything Fire Nation was fantastic in this show. Iroh specifically. I did want to point out like they did introduce an element of the White Lotus. When Azula's a spy, the guy who gets set on fire by Ozai. If you look at his arm, he has a tattoo, and it's a.
are you serious
Seriously,
oh,
I'm gonna see if I can find.
are you
this.
no I'm looking
Well,
it
I
up
have
right
it. I have the
I'm gonna
footage.
see,
But yeah, I would
but,
love to see that. I would love to see like another like maybe interaction with Iroh and Zhang, and maybe Zhang was like maybe one of the last catalysts for Iroh to be like, you know, yeah, let me like go my own way. Because Zhang was like, yeah, dude, what we're doing in Fire Nation, this is like messed up. This is like out of balance, you know, that kind of thing. I'm gone. And then Iroh was like, you know what, I understand you. Like maybe if Iroh had the opportunity to like stop Zhang, and he's like, you know what, no, I'm not gonna stop you. And I agree with you, you know, like
yeah. It also makes sense because you can also tie that into like a Zuko alone type of episode because while Zuko's off by himself, we get the flashback, and he also did train with Piandao, right? He's the one who trained him in swords, right?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Yeah, oh no, yeah, Piandao, that's a comic thing. But yeah, they've been doing that. They've been adding like Mother of Faces is like a very comic thing. And I was like, what, they added Mother of Faces?
Okay.
I'm looking for his arm right now. Like I'm looking.
I actually got it. So give me.
Oh, it's there. You're right. I don't know if it's White Lotus. I think it is White Lotus. I think it is a White Lotus tattoo.
Here it is.
Yep. That's the one I'm looking at right now. That's.
Are you freaking serious? How did I miss that? I'm sorry, I'm loud.
I mean, it's you're good. You're good. You sound fine. But yeah, it's just a tattoo. It's a tattoo. We all missed it. My friend Caleb pointed this out.
How did I miss that?
Well, I mean,
it is obvious. I know, but
you're looking at the Fire Nation throne. You're looking at Ozai for he just burned this dude alive. Like that was.
You're also looking at like, is that the actress that plays Azula? What's happening in this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, but yeah. So they introduced the White Lotus already, and I think that's the perfect way to do it.
Yeah,
honestly.
That's what's up.
And it makes sense because I was kind of thrown off guard of like, wow, we have rebel forces in the Fire Nation. I thought they were all indoctrinated, and this like, well, no. Piandao is there, so it's like it makes sense to tie that all together with Zhang and Iroh. So,
the expanded lore of Piandao is that he defeated like 100 Firebender or 100 Fire Nation soldiers, or whatever, who were like try to like imprison him. They're like, just leave him alone, like kind of thing, like let him live in his corner of the Fire Nation.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's honestly really cool. Especially again, now I keep thinking about it's like do a Zuko and Iroh alone, where it's just like them separated.
Yeah, like instead of just being just Zuko alone, it could be both Iroh and Zuko, and then you can get a lot of that, the expansion of like seeing Iroh's transition, right? Because we haven't seen that actually like in the show, and that's something that the live action can do.
Yeah, that'd be really sick. I love that idea.
I mean, I would love if Simu Liu would play Lieutenant. That would be awesome because I know. Have you guys watched Kim's Convenience?
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and that's his actual son in that version, and I'm like, oh, he play Lieutenant.
You think he would play? I mean, he probably would just as a favor. But Simu Liu's kind of getting
No, he's
up
big
there.
now. It's gonna be expensive.
Look, if Serena Williams can do an ad for this show, I'm sure Simu can show up for a scene.
I think Simu would like it enough that he'll take a price cut, so they don't break their budget on one episode.
Plus, it's not like he's busy with Shang-Chi too. What's happening with that?
I don't know what's going on. That's a whole other thing. That's Marvel is a mess right now, dude.
I know I'm thinking way too far ahead, but he'll be a good General Iroh the second.
Ooh, actually, I mean, like that a lot.
He could play both.
I mean,
Sure,
just do like Dante Bosco.
Like Dante, yeah, it'll be like an allusion to Dante, yeah, exactly, playing the character voice.
Oh, that's fun,
that'd be amazing. Antoine, you're up next. What you got? What do you
Zhang. I mean, I know I got mixed in there, but Zhang was my thing. Like, I want to see my boy.
Nice.
Integrate him, please, and also specifically, I want to see that moment of Aang burning Katara. Like, I think that's again, showing more flaws of the characters. I think that's something that needs to be like present a little bit more in the show. And that was a pretty big flaw because I mean that's part of Aang being goofy, right? Like, oh, I'm so excited to do this thing. I'm learning new tricks. Look at the fire. I'm so good. Oh snap! I burned someone, and him being like, oh my god, I can really hurt someone with this. I don't ever want to do fire ever again. I'm swearing off of it. Like that was like a pretty big moment for him. That I feel like was missed definitely in book 1. But you can reintegrate it into book 2.
Ties into power theme that I was thinking of about how power Aang starts getting afraid of his own power.
Like the Avatar State, the first episode of book 2 is that basically. He's like, oh my god, I didn't realize how much I destroyed.
Yeah,
and that's when Roku rips him up and he's like, all right, it's time that you learn, like, because you messes things up right now.
My only concern with Zhang is that they kind of did some of those plot beats this season with like Aang not bending water because he's kind of afraid and he doesn't want to bend these other elements. It's like,
oh, was that an actual plot line in Netflix?
Yeah. That's why he doesn't bend water. Because he voices like, yeah, I'm afraid of bending other elements, and he's afraid of the responsibility.
That must
and it's like
right over my head because I do not.
You were probably focusing on this kid's not bending anything.
Yeah.
Well, he said to Katara, Master, he didn't want to learn from Katara because the only other person that taught him before was Gyatso, and he had missed.
Oh yeah, that's a weird reason to me. That's a weak reason. My only instructor was Gyatso. It's like you could learn from
that was a
people,
weird reason.
Yeah,
that was probably like I mentioned, Mike. The sub reason below that was that like he just doesn't want to learn more because he's afraid.
Yeah, well, my point is they kind of touched on that subject a little bit. I didn't say they did it well, but I don't know if they'd revisit it a second time. But I think once you introduce the ticking clock, and we can talk about Sozin's comment, I'll reiterate that when Antoine comes back so he knows what we're talking about. But you have the comment, and now you have that ticking clock. And so it makes sense that Zhang, that they seek out Zhang. That could be an episode 1 thing. Antoine, before you blipped out, I was talking about how they have the ticking clock of the comet now. And so it makes sense for like episode 1 or 2. It's like, we need to get an earthbending teacher, but we also need to find a firebending teacher. So
right. Yeah.
You can make Zhang like the first episode.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can have an off-screen Aang mastered water, situation, especially with Aang being he's gonna be looking old. I think you're like, that's okay.
I think the cold open to that is him mastering waterbending, doing the last thing. Yeah, and then Katara being like, "Congratulations,
exactly."
Sifu, and be like, okay, well, we just
I think
that's
exactly how you can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I had one, and it's a simple one, but it's one I really want. I want to see the Serpent's Pass, and I feel like that might get cut.
Oh, I think that's
I am so worried. I was going through the list earlier today, and I was like, man, Serpent's Pass, it is on the chopping board, but it is so freaking important. There's so much important stuff in book 2. Like in Serpent's Pass is like it's Aang at his lowest point of almost being like just shut off from the world. Like I have nothing else left. Like, and then Katara is the one who who brings him back, who shows him again what hope is, and then the baby is called Hope and stuff.
Mhm.
Might be a little cheesy, but
I think they're
it's
just gonna use. I think they use those elements. I think it's just not gonna be in the context of like the Serpent's Pass. I think
probably
it's
right.
gonna be like
That's
a
probably right.
desert thing or a bossing say thing or whatever.
Oh, they might combine crossing a desert, a 2 for 1. That actually would make sense, right? It's like, oh, we got to cross the desert. Usually, whoever will get us across the desert, but Aang has to cross the desert, and then they'll steal from Legend of Korra and take those dune-like creatures, and that'll be the one. Um, so yeah, so they might
Uh,
combine those two.
And the drill, I think the drill not making it. I
the
don't think drill's
drill,
making it.
no.
I
The chase,
know.
no. Like they might get merged into like one plot
I,
line.
I I need the chase. The
Yeah, I
chase
think the chase
is
might be there,
a
maybe.
Mexican, what they call that, Mexican
Make a standoff.
showdown, show
Standoff.
off,
Yeah,
Mexican standoff between Aang, Azula, and Zuko.
yeah, I think that's gonna stay. I think it's staying.
Hopefully,
Maybe
all I
in a
know
different
is
context, but I think like that element, like them being in like the old Western area looking place, I think that element's gonna stay.
yeah. This is why like I was talking about the Serpent's Pass. It's like that's it. That feels like an episode they can cut, but it's like you get Suki back and you get that
I know.
relationship with Sokka, and it's like they might remix it. It might not be cut, but it's definitely going to be in the remix category where it's going to get changed around a lot.
And I, for one thing, they did a good job of remixing things, like putting
Mm.
certain storylines together. Like they put the Jet and Mechanist storyline together. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like Jet would hate the Mechanist.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
would
I was
want to
actually okay
kill
with
the
that. I was
Mechanist.
okay with the concept of that, like for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that worked for me for the most part. The booming side of that equation later on in like the second half of that two-parter, I'm like, I don't know if I'm a fan of this, but I did like having those plot lines kind of like intersect at one point, and then the resolution I thought was pretty strong.
Because I like the idea
Um,
that Jet was like, I don't like how this king is like,
yeah,
That
not
was
actually like.
weird because if he succeeded in killing the king, it would cause Omashu so much
Yes. And that's why
chaos and
Jet.
stuff.
That's the whole thing with Jet is that he's so far gone that he makes stupid decisions like that.
True.
Like
right,
True.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
remember in the original, he was gonna flood an entire village,
his own
to kill
village.
a couple of
Right?
fire.
That was like his own village, right?
Yeah, and it's like, what, we saw like 5 soldiers there. That was a bit excessive, Jet.
Mhm. And I think that's what they were trying. I think they doubled up on that, or they wanted to double up on that, and that's the same thing that Boomy was doing as well.
Mhm.
Is that he was like kind of like fed up with everything. He was like, I'm so angry. He's like, wait, hold on. Obviously, something weird happened with Aang. He's the same age you saw him 100 years ago. Why is your first instinct to be like, you just ran away? It's like, you don't know that. You don't know that movie. How do you like, like, why are you being so like, aggressive?
Jaded.
Yeah. I mean, jaded. I think he himself,
Mm.
like that. If they want that to be the case for him, like that's fine. But like to have him be that way with Aang, in the specific context that Aang is like looks like a child, and obviously some weird situation happened. I mean, he let Aang explain. I was in an iceberg for 100 years or something. Like, I don't know. Like I feel like that wasn't there, or like that wasn't thought about. Because they
Yeah.
were so specific on making this jaded Boomy that they kind of forgot about like
Yeah.
the other parts of it. That don't really make sense.
And it would have been stronger if Aang actually ran away. Like it wasn't
Right.
his fault. None of that was his fault. Aang went for a brisk walk and
Yep.
got trapped.
It
He didn't run away.
And then he came back to Boomy and like maybe he finally admitted that, or maybe that's what Boomy's trying to do the entire time. Like, admit it, whatever. And then like Aang's like,
Ooh.
yes, it's my fault. Like I ran away, like he's like crying about that.
Yeah,
Such a better scene, like so much more conflict, so much like, I think that would have been much better.
I love the idea.
I hate that you just wrote something great. That would have been. I hate when that happens.
And that Gordon could perform that Gordon could conform the
Yeah,
crying
he's good.
So he's like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, yes, I did run away. It was my fault. And then Boomy's like, then he could be aggressive.
I'm so mad at you.
That's Chris, this is how I feel about the entire show, where it's like, I like the vision. The execution there is like, because jaded Boomy, at first I'm like, that's not Boomy. How can you do this? Then after thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? This man is he might be the only person on the planet who has
seen
lived
the
through
entire war.
Right.
Yeah.
The entire, especially him being friends with Aang, like seeing all those people get wiped out. I feel like the issue was having him being mad at Aang. Because
Yes,
like you were saying, it doesn't you don't know what happened to him. He's clearly still 12, so it's not like he was just in
there's something
hiding.
weird. Like, ask
And
the better questions. Like, hey, why are you 12? Like,
so like him being mad at the world and being tired and weary, I'm cool with, but it's like
right.
he shouldn't have beef with Aang. Like you can still have him test him and be like, that's cool. But you also need to make the test make a little more sense because he's doing it for no reason because Sokka and Katara aren't being held hostage, and it's like it felt like it just needed another draft.
It's another pass. Yeah, exactly. It just needed
It just needed that line that you just said, and it would have been it. Because it would one thing it would have helped me accept that Aang wasn't. It would have been kind of a twist, right? Because at first you're like, oh, they changed it. Aang would just went on a walk, but in reality, Aang admits to himself that he actually was
and
running
we can
away.
see revelation of that in that scene where Bumi's like pestering him, be like, no, admit it, you know. And he's like, you're right, I ran away. I didn't want it responsibility. You know?
Yeah. So I guess that leads me to my next point. I just need the writing to be a little bit stronger. And I know that's just a general statement, but it's like I want them to have I feel like they had too much reverence for the original, and I think that kind of held them back a little bit, where it's like we want to make sure we keep core elements, and it's like, but you changed it here, so now it doesn't make sense. If you're gonna make a change, go all in.
And you got to make change across the board, right? Exactly.
Right. You're gonna have to do it because, like we've been talking about, book 2 is dense. It's the densest book of the entire story. It's the second act in this 3-act story. So if you're gonna make changes, just go all the way and do it and commit, because for better or worse, you're never going to be as good as the original. You're just not. Right. I'm sorry, but you can do your own thing, you know, Spider-Verse style. Just be yourself, do your own thing, make the necessary adjustments. Like, I don't know what we do with Zuko, Azula, and Longfang as 3 villains of book 2 for Team Avatar.
I didn't even think about Longfang. Ooh.
You gotta have Longfang in the Dai Li.
I mean, yeah, he's gotta be in it, but it's like, because you know, obviously with the Kyoshi warrior infiltration and stuff like that too, it's like, yeah, but it's hard. Yeah. It's a lot.
It's so much. So like I implore the writers' room to just use it as a reference point of like, hey, we need to just make sure we start here, we get to Ba Sing Se, Aang gets shot full of lightning, Spirit Water brings him back at the end. Everything else in the middle, you have free reign. I feel like you're better off if you do that, because One Piece did that. Like One Piece cut and changed a lot. They kept the core bones of that story there.
I think it would be really smart to cut up book 2 and end on Lake Laogai, where Aang reunites with Appa, and then you bring a couple elements after that, and then you bring in the Jet. Well, wait, no, Jet has to die right there. Anyway, but
if Jet dies,
they basically confirmed that Han died, because for the longest time we've always been wondering, like, you know, the time where comedically he came and like tried to like take down Zhao, and then like goes over there. Like,
Admiral Shoy.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I guess that's the confirmation. He died.
Yeah, but if they cut it in half, yeah, having him reunite with Appa, that's a good moment. And then you can flesh out the next half of the season.
But I think that might have happened if this was a super home run, like if it was critically like, you know, if they had a fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and like the fan base was like all on board, I think they would have done that. Like, but I think now, like, I think they
don't have that patience.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's just book 2.
Right. They can afford book 2 and 3 end on a really, really super high note, and then maybe they can branch off and do the search, or they can even do. By that point, they can.
I heard through the grapevine. I heard through the grapevine. Oh, hold on. I heard through the grapevine that they might be doing a Kyoshi series if this all goes like well and stuff like that. That they might be doing a Kyoshi standalone series, live action.
I would love it. I would love anything Kyoshi.
That would be preferred, honestly. I feel like Kyoshi would fit this format better.
Honestly, when that first sequence, when we saw like the earthbending spy, like, you know, running away or whatever, I was like, yeah, that can we just make this a series, please? Like, what? Who is this guy?
That dude, who the heck was that guy? One thing, that guy's earthbending was like some of the best earthbending I saw. And also his acting was good. He was like, so you wanted us, like, his acting. I don't know who's casting these third-tier roles.
Actors, yeah, they are. Like, give me this series of like the new characters and stuff like that. Like, give me that.
like you guys are saying, I don't know if they have, because one of my issues with this season was that it felt like they were filming it as if this was the only season.
Yes, I felt that too.
Yeah,
they added so much stuff in there because they're like, oh, in case we don't get anything else, you know.
In
thing
case
is,
we
and I
don't
don't
get there, we
mind.
had to do the secret tunnel song, guys. In case we
I
can't
don't.
do it next time.
I don't mind that approach in most cases. Because like one time, Christopher Nolan in doing The Dark Knight, he was like, I could have saved Two Face for the third movie, but like no, you just do what you can do, and then you try to make it work. And so I don't mind them trying to get in, I guess, as much as they can get in. And like the same with Aquaman, like James Wan was like, oh, I want to add this, I want to add this, I want to add that. Like I might as well do it if I can do it. And so I didn't mind them reaching for certain elements that seemed out of grasp. But
Almost poetic, I
sometimes it
love it.
worked. Sometimes it didn't work.
Oh yeah, sometimes. One thing that I really want to see going forward, and it's a very basic thing that I'm like 99% sure they're gonna hit. I need to see Azula be terrifying because like
Yeah,
that.
like no more of this. Like, yeah, fine, we can get this backstory of Azula, but no more. Like now we need
Right.
to see just the cold Azula. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? The
and
cold cooler run.
I feel like this was just the origin story, and that's why
Right.
it's like I'll give it a pass because I know a lot of people were kind of like disappointed with how they portrayed Azula. I'm like, this is the beginnings. Like she ends the series lightning bending and blue flames, and so it's like, and she took over Omashu, like you know. So I'm hoping that that builds to like Azula's the cocky perfect princess that we know and love from the original series, and I want to see how that works in conjunction with Zuko as a character because Zuko, in my personal opinion, he and Iroh like the best parts of season 1
Oh,
anyway.
easily.
Yeah. So throwing Azula into the mix and giving Zuko a proper foil that we can root against, right? Because you're always going to root for Aang in any instance. But
Man,
like, what does
just
that
as
do with Zuko as a character going forward?
I'm just looking forward to Azula and Zuko's first interaction. Like these
Oh
two characters
yeah.
haven't spoken once, and so
And
like
Oh
it's
yeah.
just gonna be interesting.
we got Iroh and Ozai before we got Zuko and Azula in a scene. That's amazing.
Oh, that's true. That's actually fun.
Yeah.
I actually kind of like. I mean, I know people are like, I wanted Ozai to be revealed in book 3. I low key kind of like this new expanded look on Ozai. Even him like coming after the burning, and like trying to talk to Zuko. Like I like this version because it seems like he just has a very toxic way of being a parent. But
Yeah.
he is trying his best to like get
He's more
Zuko to
dimensional.
be. Yes, it's way more dimensional because he makes him. He's real human now. He's not just like a mustache, twirling villain. It's like no, I'm trying to make my kids strong. This is the best way that I know how to do it. It's the worst way to do it, but at
Yeah.
least there's like like he's actually actively trying to big them up, like in his very terrible way, versus
Yeah.
it just being like I'm just a villain.
Yeah.
That's why I love he and Azula's relationship, right? Where he's like, "Oh yeah, Zuko found the Avatar," and he like gives a
Mhm.
little smirk, and it's like he knows that he's planting the seeds to light that
S-
fire
saying
under her.
saying he's done the impossible
Mhm.
ate ate her like
Yeah, and it's again that's what leads into Azula being the way that we know her to be because it's like,
Right. So
yeah,
now in book 2, now she needs to be
right,
solid. Like, do not have her waver at all until the very end of book 3 when that happens.
which also is why that happens in book 3 too, because it's
Because now
like
you can see why. Yeah.
right, the why. And again, like this show is answering a lot of questions that I didn't necessarily have or needed explained, but if you're going to do it like this. And so I'm hoping that payoff hits, especially since May and Ty Lee are going to actually have prominent roles and not just be standing in the corner half the time
Yeah, they
too.
were
I want
basically
to
like
see.
Lo and Lee in
yeah, that's
book
true.
1, basically. You're like, oh, okay, Lo Lee's
Yeah.
gone. They just
Yeah.
got
And
Ty Lee
I
and
think
May.
I don't mind them introducing them this early because it just saves us time in book
Yeah, just
2.
consolidating.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't need
I,
Attila going off on a joint, get the Avengers together type of deal.
yeah, that saves us, 20 minutes next season. Also, we already we already know who the characters are, so like they just go do the thing. It's fine. Like it's okay. We can assume that she assembled the Avengers off screen in season 1.
Yeah.
Because I need the backstory of Ty Lee being in the circus. That has to still be a part of her character. I just don't need to see it right away.
Oh, she'll mention
Maybe
it.
they can like ask for favors. I'm like, oh, we need a favor from the troops, or maybe with the Abba's Lost Days, maybe they can integrate that with I don't know, something with Arrow.
Oh,
But
yeah.
That's an episode we're not gonna get for sure.
I guess way too
We're,
expensive.
we're not
We'll
getting
get elements of it.
30
maybe.
minutes. of CGI Appa, only Appa, and all the
Yeah.
and other CGI animals. Yeah, we're not
Yeah.
getting. He'll be lost, but he won't get his own episode.
Yeah, no, he won't get his own episode.
It'll be from Suki's perspective.
I'm low key kind of mad they made Suki and Sokka straight up make out in the like. Why would
Dude, they were boyfriend and girlfriend. Sokka cheated on Suki.
basically like honestly no? Oh my god, I didn't even think about it like that at first, but you're right. Like you're basically with Suki at that point. Like y'all
Yeah.
straight made out. I mean, granted, they had that little line being like, "I didn't know that person was like a Fire Nation soldier" when he like hit on somebody in
Yeah.
the middle of the. Which I wonder if that was one of the comics was about that, right? When he tried to pretend to be like a waterbender or something like that, or pretend that he was the Avatar. There was a comic where I think it was like Sokka the Avatar or something like that, and he also was hitting on I think like Fire Nation girl or something like that. They did a lot of like little tidbits to the comics stuff like that, which I appreciated. But yeah, you're right. Sokka cheated on Suki.
he
Dude,
did.
Because in the original he didn't. He just got like a kiss on the cheek
Yeah.
and just like
Yeah, they left it off like to me when they left in the animated show, it was like, all right, that was just a kiss. That was it. This they're like, nah, they were together.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. But you're right. Sokka totally cheated.
Well, you see, they still have flaws.
True. Yeah. He's not sexist. He's a womanizer. Like he's just going around. Maybe that's what they were doing. Like, we're not gonna make Sokka sexist. Sokka's gonna love women. Like love women. So much so that he's flirting with the female thoughts.
It's funny because like yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting thing. That's one thing I did notice. This isn't necessarily a thing I need them to do, but the fact that all romantic tension was gone from this show, I don't need it to necessarily be there per se, but I do feel like it fundamentally changed Katara and Aang's relationship specifically, and it's like it's very sterile. They don't really interact that much with each other, and it doesn't have to be in a flirty sense, but it's like they don't even feel
something like at
friends.
least like close friends, because you got to be best friends, so that
That's-
merges to being like, oh, I love you,
Right.
Yeah, that's one of my things. Is just more contained. Like, and I'm not sure I should contain, but just it's for the story. Like when Aang wakes up, he sees Katara's face, and it's the first thing he sees. That is like almost destiny. Right? There's a whole thing about destiny in the show, and then like I need that scene with the Guru where the Guru is telling him like the love for the Airbenders hasn't gone away. Like it's transformed to new love, and he sees Katara there. If they take that away, that's gonna hurt.
They definitely need to do more, like to show that Aang has some sort of attraction or Katara has some sort of attraction to. Like they had her with Jet, and that's fine, whatever. That happened in the first season too. They have Sokka doing his thing, and and you can say like, oh, Aang is just too busy because he just like emerged into this new world. But once you get to book 2, none of that anymore. He needs to start liking Katara.
Yeah,
like,
I think Albert Kim was scared. I think he didn't want to get involved in like ship wars, or he didn't want to get involved with like because Gordon looked really young compared to
right. Now
Connie
that Gordon is what he is now, you got no excuse. You got no excuse. They can totally be a thing.
I think that goes into what you were saying, Chris, though, like of them being scared, because like, and because everybody kept saying, well, the size difference, and he looks like a child, and she looks like she's a teenager.
That's
like,
fine. Just
they don't kiss until the last scene of the show.
Yeah. Well, and then the Dead Black Sun, the one he kind of stole from her, he's like, I'm not ready. Don't kiss me right now.
Yeah, they could cut that.
But that was all book 3, though. It was all book 3. So, but you got the stepping stones, right? It's kind of like you guys watch The Office? I don't know if the Office people.
Yeah.
Jim and Pam, they were buds for like 2-3 seasons before they got together. Make them buds. Make them like show why they are attracted to each other beyond just kissing.
Just put some friction in. Put some will they, won't they in there. They don't have to. Just put it in there.
Yeah. Or just just show chemistry, like in general.
Yeah.
Between them.
Yeah,
at least show that Egg has a crush. So.
It really comes down to just that, though, of like the chemistry of like, you need to make me feel like they do like each other, even if it's a platonic relationship.
Right.
And that's another thing of, is it because they didn't have time to showcase all of that? I don't know.
And I just thought of this, and they might not do it, but I think they should. It's just consult the OGs, consult the creators.
Yeah, man.
I'm not saying, I think they can get in all my interviews I've seen and heard of between Mike and Brian. Brian's over it. Brian's not going to do it.
Yeah,
But
he was at the
Michael
premiere.
Dunn,
Mike was at the premiere.
uh,
Brian was not. And
Brian's
also,
over it.
Mike got rid of his story on Instagram, the one that
Mhm.
explains like why they left.
Mhm.
Brian's is still on his Instagram. Well, let me see if that's
Yeah.
still the case. But a few days ago, that was the case.
Yeah. So just bring them in to consult. They're busy doing Avatar Studios.
Yeah, obviously.
Just bring them in. Just bring in Michael Dante DiMartino just to like, hey, just look this over with us. Does these things pass the sniff test to you? Is there anything outlandish? Anything you think you need to just go over a little one more over? You understand this universe? Just let us know. Also, he's more of the writer between the
Yeah, he
two.
is. Yeah, Brian's more the
Um,
artist, the animator.
yeah, and so just bring him in a little bit. Do get a lot of fan support. Because a lot of fans, and one thing I kind of hate to see, like a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, well, this changed," and fans will be like, "Well, no wonder why the creators left. Like they probably didn't leave because of that." But get a little more fan support. I don't know. I just want this thing to succeed. So just bring in Michael Dante DiMartino just as a consultant, not as a writer or anything, because he's busy. Bring him as a consultant.
Yeah. I would love that. I think it's honestly necessary because again, two of the strongest episodes of this season were written by the OGs. I
I think
pulled up
it's a win-win. It's a win-win. If the Netflix show does well, it only is going to be
It only helped.
good
Yeah,
for
it only
Avatar
helped.
Studios,
Yeah.
and vice versa.
Yep.
Like
Absolutely.
the M Night
yeah, you
movie
don't
took back the Avatar franchise back 10 years.
Yep.
yeah, it's a lot like superhero movies where it's like you the Madam Web will hurt the Marvel brand, whether it's MCU or not. It's like it says association with Marvel Studios. It's like people see Madam Web, you're kind of like, Same thing with Avatar. It's like you see Avatar: The Last Airbender, somebody's gonna like, I don't like this, and then the movie comes out, and they boycott the movie because they don't know any better. Because I do know
Right.
people who watch this show.
No, so many
didn't like
casuals
it.
have no context for like what is what. Like it, and
Right.
I don't blame them because if I was casual too, I would not understand. Like what? That's different from this one, and what's happening?
Yeah. I did find a quote from Albert Kim because I could have sworn I heard this. He was asked about shipping and Katara and Zuko and Aang, and he has a quote here which I thought was pretty funny. He said, I'm not getting involved in that debate. I know how passionate the fans are. And then he went on to say, I'm relieved we were able to put a pin in that.
Oh my
So-
Yeah,
god.
he was scared.
Yeah.
Don't be
he
don't be a
avoided
wuss
it.
about it. It's part of the story. You can't. It's canon. Like I'm completely fine with people shipping whoever they want to ship. Ship Zutara, good for you. But it is Katang is part of the story. It's part of
Right.
Aang and Katara's arc. Like you can't be blind to it. You can't be worried about one thing. They'll be fine. They're fine with Avatar.
Yeah, it'd be weird if they got up in arms about it. It's like they just did the show and you got mad. It's okay.
Yeah. One side
Yeah.
thing is make Katara's outfit more loose. Like she just looks pretty stiff when she's fighting, and just a looser outfit makes the water like stuff flow. Sometimes she just looks a little stiff. Maybe it was just a fine choreography.
I think the actress who plays Katara is probably also the only one who had like the least amount of fight experience and training
Mhm.
coming into this. So like she could have just been a little.
And then they
stiff.
had
Dude,
her in a
that-
big old
that-
coat in the beginning.
Yeah, that's the
I
thing,
mean,
yeah.
that actually was not bad though. That fight at the end though.
Dallas Liu looked the best fighting. I think. Like he
Oh,
had
easily.
kicks.
Yeah.
And stuff. Like
Oh,
he looked.
Iroh though,
was like-
man, I need him to be Dragon in the West, please. Like some of his fire rating was left some stuff to be desired. I was like, that's not the Dragon of the West.
But to me, Iroh never looks that.
No,
I
but
will
he should-
say,
he should. I'm okay with that. Like what Yoda should be like in Star Wars is that you should be like a slow moving, deliberate fighter. But when you do deliberately, and I think this is more a case of the effects work, not so much the performance from Paul Lee. Like I think he can only do so much. But that's the thing. Like work with that actor. Have a slow Mr. Miyagi, kind of form. But when it comes out, that should be Dragon Fire. When it's coming out.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, especially at the end when he was like, whatever you do that spirit, I'm gonna do to you tenfold. I was like, oh, that was not tenfold, sir. That was pretty ordinary.
I was gonna say the exact same thing. Like I felt the threat when Iroh said that to Zhao. Even Zhao was like, "Oh shoot!" Like he's threatening me with tenfold. Like maybe I should reconsider this. And he's like, "No." And then Iroh, unleashes. He takes out like all those fire benders around him. But granted, in this one, Iroh did kill Zhao. That was a change.
Yeah, I wasn't
Yeah.
a fan. I liked it better when it was like when Zuko and Zhao had that moment, and then he was like, "F you, I got pride," and then he like lets himself be taken by Koizilla. Um, yeah, it was kind of
I
awkward too. Like the staging was awkward. In that scene.
I missed
I,
that too.
I missed that scene, but I think by the time we got to that point, I realized that this version of Zhao isn't that prideful. Like he's more of a
Right.
weasel.
Yeah.
Where it's like he's
True,
going behind everybody's
true.
back,
That is
working with
true.
Azula. So it's like I don't think he would have taken Zuko's hand
Yeah,
in
he
that
was like, "Hey,
moment.
actually, no, I will like take your hand."
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
That's true.
Unless that was his
Uh,
one thing to show, like, you know what, this is my one
his
thing to do,
last.
to have
Yeah.
some sort of, honor in
Mhm.
some, crazy way.
I'm so split between which Zhao I liked more because I don't love Zhao the character all that much.
Yeah, I never loved Zhao either.
And so they changed him up. He had that one funny line. Zhao was weirdly funny in this. Like,
No, he was,
but
especially episode 6 at the Po Hwai stronghold.
yeah,
Like celebrate.
and then he was like, "I'm gonna take away waterbenders, and he'll be the master of three elements." Doesn't have the same ring to it, something like that. I was like, "Hey, why is Shao something funny?" But yeah, I missed the like Zuko being taking my hand and Zhao being like, "F you," and then
Nah,
just
I'd rather die.
yeah,
I love the callback to that though when we get to it in Korra. It's like,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Well, now they have the
So
fog of shadows and freaking this. Like, and Ko is completely different. I was like, wait, your faces should be gone, and then their faces are still there. But okay, sure, we'll change it. So
I had to go through some mental gymnastics in my head just to make that make sense.
because it was a whole
But
different
yeah,
creature that was the overseer of the fog of shadows in Korra. It was like that spider
mhm,
looking thing. And now they have like
mhm.
Ko having it, and then the mother faces didn't really even need to be brought up because she didn't really do anything. Like she didn't like give anyone's faces back, which could I thought that's what they were gonna do. Like I thought they were gonna change it where they introduce mother faces. If they go
Oh,
that route, Katara and
yeah,
Sokka lose
that
their
would have been
faces and they're freaking out, which is creepy in the original show. They don't have any of that creepiness. I felt.
yeah.
man.
Um, and
I would
yeah,
have
so
liked that, but that would have been a lot. That's almost like an
yeah,
extra
it would
30
even
minutes.
yeah, even them showing that statue, I was like, no one's really gonna get this. I know this because I know the comics, and I know other faces, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of makes me question if this is successful enough to get a season 4 and they do the search
yeah,
because
I
I
think
feel like they
right now
skipped
I'm
the
thinking
promise.
3. Yeah,
Skip the promise. The promise is so weird to me.
yeah, it's a
It's
little
like
silly.
Zuko being like, hey, please promise me you'll kill me. Promise
Yeah,
me goes nowhere. Just go straight to the search.
Yeah, just go straight to the search
Yeah.
if you're gonna do that. Yeah, or integrate the search maybe
Yeah.
as like a pre-finale
Yes.
thing, maybe
Yeah.
possibly if you want to add Ursa in there.
ooh, that'd be a inspired change. I don't know if they'd be able to do that.
Yeah, I don't know because it also involves Azula. I mean, but it
Right.
doesn't involve Azula because at the end of that, she doesn't have her reunion with her mom, right? The way that she wants to. She actually does still revert back to Azula. So they could technically, if they want to, they could make it a book 3. You can have the
Mm.
search actually be in there, kind of. But
I
I
don't know.
guess.
There's
it'd
so
be
strong
awkward.
Azula stuff in the search though. Like Azula still like she tries to kill Ursa when she's the
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
space before. Mhm. I don't
she's
know.
still kind of, and that would make her even more unstable if you want to like, have the unstable storyline. That she
Yeah.
almost interacted with her mom, right? Almost had a reunion with her, but was not successful.
Yeah, that could work. That'd be a very different book 3.
Yeah,
I
it'd be a very
honestly,
different book 3. Yes.
but to what I was saying earlier in this episode of like, I want them to take more creative liberties because you just can't at this point. And I think the foundation of this show, you can't go the same route anyway. And I'm pretty
No.
sure Albert Kim said in one of his interviews, his post release interviews, he's like, hey, season 2 is going to be very different because
Yeah.
we
Did he?
set up.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Mm,
basically said, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but
mm,
he was like, hey, we established the show the way that we felt was best, and now we're going to take a few more creative liberties going forward and make a few more changes and go in a different direction. And so I'm sure, because he keeps saying that he wants to keep the heart and spirit of the show, so I'm sure a lot of it's going to stay the same. But like we were saying with book 3 of like, hey, they're pretty much waiting for Day of Black Sun and then the comet, right? that's what 3 episodes out of 8. So if they want to do the search for 2 episodes and rework that, you're gonna have to rewrite it, of course, again to make it fit within that timeline. They very well could and give closure to Zuko and have
Oh, that'd be
Azula
good.
kind of fall off the deep end because she does see her mom again, and that can lead to her breaking point. That could be an interesting way to go about it,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, no, I think so.
Guys, it has been a blast talking Avatar, theorizing. I think my biggest takeaway from this is just get Toph right. Because I feel like
Yeah,
Toph,
no,
Just
that's
get tough.
it. If you do that, you're fine. I'm telling you,
You'd
everything will fall
honestly
into
win
place.
over probably at least half of the dissenters if you just
Mm-hmm.
nail Toph.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, seriously.
Agreed.
Like, if you nail Toph, that fixes so many things. So many, like, people having issues with the humor, people having issues with the chemistry. It's just like, yeah, just throw Toph in there. It's fine. That's essentially what
How c-
season 2 of the show did anyway. It's like they threw a
yeah.
Toph. It's like, oh, this is amazing.
How could they butcher Toph for you guys?
I don't even know how do you screw it off?
Uh,
Because
for
she's literally, yeah, you can't. What do you, unless you like just neuter her completely, like you're like, oh, all her, meanness or whatever. We're just gonna make her nice
due to
and
Toph,
slightly sassy.
yeah, how you can ruin Toph and it feels like it's a no-brainer, but you do what you did to Aang, and that's my fear of, like, Aang.
Yeah, make her like more neutral, right? Like,
Right, like
don't do that.
Aang has elements where he feels like, and this is not Gordon's fault at all. I just want to make that clear. Aang, he feels like Aang at times, and then other times just like he's just, I'm the Avatar and I have to save the world and it's my responsibility, and he's struggling with that responsibility. But
Mm-hmm.
that Aang in the animated show, his struggles, he channels that into goofing off and slacking off and like running away from his problems. And so by not having this version do that, he then doesn't feel like Aang to me that much anymore. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
to ruin Toph would be a very similar way of, yeah, Toph is responsible and she's level-headed and she gets along with Katara, and it's like that to me it's like, uh
Yeah, very similar
I
thing
would
to
hate
how they deal with Han and Sokka. It's like Han and Sokka are getting along together. It's like, oh, there's nothing there now.
What
Don't
if
do
she's an
that with Katara.
orphan and not
Mm.
rich
I
and
kind of like the
doesn't
idea of
run
her being
away?
rich, but like, I mean, as long as they get sassy Toph right, they can do whatever they want with her backstory.
True.
Like,
Yeah, I think that's really it. If sassy Toph is the constant, because that's her entire personality, and
Yeah.
I think that's why it's a fear of mine. Is like, you've basically sanded all of the edges off of these characters, and
I
it's
love
like,
the show.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I think I've dropped a lot. I love the show, but that is one of my biggest critiques is that it did just smooth out some of these characters. It's a constant theme with like all of them, except for Iroh in this one scene where that guy called him a butcher. I was like, ooh, holy
whew,
crap, you guys called Iroh a butcher. I
yeah,
love it.
more
yeah.
of that, please, more of that.
I think that's why the Fire Nation to me is the best part of the show, though. It's because Zuko, you can't stand off the rough edges of Zuko, because
Mm-hmm.
if you do that, you're left with absolutely nothing. It's like, why are you a bad guy? It's like the flaws in Zuko have to be there, and they are the backbone of the entire show, in my opinion. As much as I love Aang, for me, Zuko is why
No,
I fell in
Zuko
love
is what
with that
makes
show.
like
Right,
Avatar: Last Airbender special. Like,
right,
what makes it great, not just like, oh, it's a pretty good show. Like, Zuko
and
makes it great.
and so that's why excuse me, that's why Zuko and Iroh stand out so much, is because at the core of them, they're still very much the same characters, whereas Aang feels a little different, Sokka's a little different, Katara's very different. So to answer long-winded answer your question, basically treat Toph like you treated everybody else on Team Avatar. Treat her like you treat Zuko. That's my only request.
Yeah.
I'm flipping it back on you though, Chris. What can they do to ruin Toph to you?
Oh man, if I mean it, same like you said. If there, I need Toph to come in with with Black Air Force energy against everybody. That's what I need. If they come in and she's timid and she's a little light and she's I don't know, appeasing the people, I need Toph to be 100% Toph, not giving a crap about people or their feelings.
Yeah.
Need her to have confrontations with every member of Team Avatar because it's gonna make them
Mhm.
better and grow. Um, Yeah, I don't know. It's like
Maybe that's what they were doing all along. They're like, yeah, we neutered everybody in season 1 so that they can butt heads with Toph.
yeah. Like
That'd be-
Toph used to wreck
Oop,
build up as the season goes on.
yeah, that's fair. One thing I'm interested in, and this is a very nerdy thing for me, I guess, to point out, is that Toph's earthbending style is very different from regular earthbenders, and I don't know if this. Yeah, I don't know if this show did a decent enough job of portraying the different styles
No, I
of
don't
the
think
bender.
so, honestly.
Yeah, so like I don't even know if we'll feel that or notice that, but I need Toph to be visually different when she's earthbending and fighting from everyone else.
And particularly because she's blind too, as well. Like that's a
Right.
huge component as well.
I'm sure they'll nail the seismic sense. Like that's such an obvious thing.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that. How do you tackle that? They did Daredevil, I guess, so they got that going for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Did you guys notice that they never fixed Heibai, by the way?
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, it was
Well,
like,
he gave him
his acorn, but it was like somewhat unresolved. Like he never came back to his panda form, you know.
Right. So like, I wonder if that's another thing. Yeah, I wonder if that's a thing that we see in season 2. It's like, oh, he's still a rampaging monster.
Oh my God.
He has to calm him down.
I think they appeased him.
I think
it
acorn
was
was
one of
supposed to be
things
the idea
where-
of it, but it wasn't
Yeah.
as the visual wasn't as obvious as it was in the original show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Budgetary reasons. I get it. Chris, thank you for joining me. First time here on the channel. Appreciate you. Got to do this again. Love talking Avatar. Where can the folks find you and your work?
You can find me on YouTube. Just search for Avatar Last Podcasters / The Objective Geek. Search either one of those, just find my channel. I'm on Twitter. I have a Facebook page for Avatar Last Podcasters. And I'm on Twitter under both The Objective Geek and under Avatar Last Podcasters. So I'm over there.
Sweet.
I still call it Twitter. I don't care.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
gonna
I
call
call
him
it Twitter too.
I'm gonna call him Twitter.
It's like calling the Fox Hills malls the Westfield, that's the LA thing.
Twitter. I mean, sometimes, occasionally, if I'm feeling spicy, I just say the platform formerly known as Twitter.
Oh my God.
But yeah, Antoine, thanks for joining us again, dude. Always fun having you here. Where can the folks find you, and what are you up to?
Just look for my name, Antoine Bandele. You'll find me everywhere. I have a website, so just put my name in and you'll find everything, like all the socials.
This question is just so you guys can answer. Honestly, it's all in the description. Just go down below.
Oh yeah, that too.
Everywhere in
That's
the
easiest
description.
way.
Like, subscribe so you don't miss a thing. Check out their channels. Amazing Avatar related content there. So yeah, you probably should go binge watch a few videos after you're done here. Check me out here on the channel, of course, and on the Chatter After podcast and the Amateur Otaku. We just reviewed Demon Slayer. Brandon is on book 3 now of Avatar Last Airbender. He's watching for the first time. We got to do an episode one day, getting his thoughts. He just finished the beach episode and essentially said it changed his life. Like,
Dude, the beach episode, I had a when so we were reviewing every single episode of the beach. I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
every single episode of Avatar and the podcast. And
Yeah.
we got to the beach, and I had a freaking revelation about myself. It's like, oh, I'm quiet, and sometimes I don't speak my mind because my parents whooped me as a child, and I was hesitant to speak out sometimes. I was like, oh crap. Beach is a great episode.
It's a
That's
great
fantastic.
episode.
Fantastic.
I love my parents, by the way. My parents are great. That's just how they.
It's one thing I want this live action show to hit going forward is that these are just real people. They're not just caricatures of I'm Pro Tycoon and I'm here to save the day and it's my destiny. Like, make them feel like well-rounded three-dimensional characters going forward. That's my biggest hope. More flaws, all that great stuff. See you guys next time. Stay flaming as always. Peace.
Water Drive.
I'm Air Nation over here.
I'm glad I didn't hit end because I was waiting for Chris to add something to the